Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Lauren Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com. All right, y'all, I'm joined once again by Dr. Joe Klimczewski. We're not going to do a whole long intro. If you want to hear about all of his million degrees and how awesome he is, you can check out the last podcast. If you haven't checked out the other podcast, I would highly recommend it. We talk all about low-fat diets and really their validity and kind of all the science behind them. But today we're going to pivot a little bit differently. And anybody who doesn't know, Joe is actually my business mentor. He's been a great friend, and he, has had so many different businesses throughout the years. So who better to actually be a business mentor to me? He's helped me a ton. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about business in general. And this is a question I actually get a lot, and it's really how to stand out in a crowded fitness industry. And currently we're recording this on April 24th. So we are still in quarantine amid the COVID-19 crisis. So if you're listening to the episode right now, this will be really, really important. But even afterwards, in the months following, this is still going to be an important topic because it's really relevant just kind of all the time. So for anybody listening we're going to kind of split it up between in-person work and online work. But Joe, so yeah, take it. I just talked a lot for that intro. So let's start with in-person work. What would be a great way to kind of stand out as an in-person trainer or somebody who does in-person consulting or even in-person speaking and just kind of traveling and, doing seminars and things of that nature?
I think that's actually the best or easiest way to break in. And I want to say that where the industry is at now, it is definitely harder than ever. There's a saying in the stock market, it's easy to make money for anybody. You could be an idiot as long as the stock market is just completely going vertical. But when you throw all the variables into a normal market, now you really have to know something. And, our industry was really climbing for a long time, and there weren't that many coaches at all. It started as 25 years ago. And, now everybody wants to be a coach, and it's very, very common for people to say that, even go get a bachelor's or master's degree in a science field, and then just sit there with an empty office and not know what to do. Why can't I get one single freaking client? So you do have to do something to stand out. And there has to be some novelty to your skill set, some novelty to the way you message that to other people, how they perceive you. But there is absolutely no shortcut to just building your business one relationship at a time. And I think you need to consider two different relationship paths. Every single client you work with is somebody who could become a cheerleader for you. So while you've got the time to really pour yourself into their lives and make this investment, make sure you are working through them. You're taking care of them. But what I will tell you, I know a lot of trained business people, a lot of salespeople, and as soon as you are a happy customer, they're asking you for your friend list. Hey, can you introduce me to somebody? Do you know this person? They'll start trolling your social media, and they will be working through you to get to more contacts. And I don't mean to sound callous, and I know everybody gets into the nutrition science world, fitness coaching, because we love to help people. We are craft people, not necessarily business people, but you will not survive if you don't build some kind of business acumen like that. So there's the taking care of your clients and working for your clients and working through your clients, but you also have an entire different path, which is referral sources. What about your physician, your family doctor, your primary care physician? What about your chiropractor, your massage therapist? What about other professional contacts you have? If you let them know that you really need their help in getting off the ground, more times than not, people are willing to help you. If they like you and trust you, they're going to want to do that. And so for you to build relationships with referral sources and nurture those referral sources, that can continually bring new clients to your doorstep.
Yeah. And even likewise, you could be like, hey, somebody, whether they're a PT or a chiropractor or a therapist or something like that, you could be like, hey, if you can refer me clients, I can refer you clients, and vice versa, because a lot of the same people need, a lot of people who are in mental health therapy need help with their diet, right? Like those things go together, right? And a lot of people who are obviously focused on, chiropractic work and physical therapy, well, they might need help in this area too. So you can definitely benefit both ways. And I love what you said about how most people who get into this are not business people, because, that's me. When I started doing this, like that was obviously the farthest thing from my mind. And, the first few years of a small business, like you're kind of like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Like as long as you do a good job, it's kind of like, okay, thumbs up, like you can work with some people. But then once you get to the point where you're like, wow, like this is what I'm really trying to do, and I'm trying to scale this and make this a career, that's when you have to say, like, I need a basic understanding of business. And I think a lot of people hear that, and even myself hear that and think like, oh, okay, slimy business person, mastermind, here we come, that kind of thing. And it's like, no, that's not what it has to be like. But you do need to figure out kind of what you are good at, whether it's your messaging or how you talk to people or whatever it is that stands out for you, and really just kind of hone in on that. And I think that so for example, I know we were talking about kind of the in-person work to start, and I think it's so important that people do that. And I think that in-person work helps online work too. And I know a lot of people get into the online business because they think, oh, I'm going to interact with people less. Yes and no. You're not directly interacting with someone, but if you don't know how to speak to people and you think that you can still type to them, you're not going to be a good coach. In my experience, the best people who can communicate online can also communicate in person. And the people who can't communicate in person are not very good online coaches. Their message doesn't come across very well. They aren't concise. They aren't direct. They might just say kind of off the wall things, or it just might come across as like they don't care, right? And nowadays with technology, there's so many ways to communicate with people, which is really awesome. But I do think that having a foundation of some kind of in-person work is so valuable. And we actually did a podcast, you guys, if you hadn't listened to it, it was a while back, and it was actually, I think it was called like the, why in-person work is important or something like that. And I actually saw a huge change in one of my coaches, Jillian, because when she first started coaching for me, she was very introverted. She didn't have a ton of in-person experience, but she was educated and she was a great client, and she like wanted to help people. So I was like, okay, she'll be awesome as a coach. But when you're signing clients, you need to get on the phone with them and you need to talk with them. And, when you are coaching people, you still need to communicate with them. And at first it was kind of a rough transition. And she would tell me like, yeah, I had this call and then it didn't go through. And, so we'd break it down. Hey, what happened? Like, what did you say during the call? What did she say? How did the other emails go? And then I saw a complete 180, Joe, when she started at the master's program. She at Dr. Campbell's lab, she not only helped out with research, so she was in the research lab helping out a ton with different types of research, whether it was like the training part or the diet coach part, whatever. And then she also started doing in-person training at Campus Rec. So she was now doing a bunch of in-person things, and that translated so well to online coaching, which completely blew me away, not only in her personal skills, like even us just communicating, but how she wrote and how she spoke to clients and how happy they were and things of that nature. So I think that, starting with some kind of in-person work is really important. So what would be your best suggestions for people who are trying to get into kind of, what should I do in person at first?
Well, first of all, I would go back to what you said about having a very unique passion and skill set that's unique to you. If you're going to stand out, there should be something that makes you stand out to people. And that does come from not just your messaging, because it's important to articulate it well and properly, but you have to decide, do I even know who I am as a business owner and where I want to go as a fitness professional? And who is my market? So I'm going to give you 3 real brief examples. I have a coach who's a student of mine in the Apex Coaching Mentorship Program, and she's in San Diego, Shanice Benson. She said, I want to work with business women who find it very busy and it's difficult to get their fitness and nutrition lives in order, specifically minority women. Because she was somebody who, as an African-American female who grew up in a household where they just didn't have the kind of values for health and fitness or education, she's the first person to graduate from college. She's working in the professional world. And now she's also a fitness coach, but she's in that world. And she's such a role model to those women. And if you can be that specific as an expert, if that is your niche, you're going to have such an advantage of attracting people. A lot of people think that when you shrink your market down to that level of specificity, that it's a negative, it's limiting, and it's just not. It absolutely makes you an expert that will attract more people. And then I have another coach in the Chicago area, Jesse Casas, who in much similar ways, but a totally different audience, he's an amazing nutrition and fitness coach. He's a physique athlete that is just he's a beast, but he works in a steel mill. And so he's a blue collar, hard hat guy. And he is a god to those people that he works with, because they look at him like, holy shit, how do you look like that? Where do you find the time to do this? And how do you do it on the lifestyle you live? And so he focuses on that. Like, his messaging now is building the people who build America. And he's focused on that one thing as he grows his business. And then I would say, look at what we have figured out in your life in terms of all the things you could possibly do and all the avenues you could go down. You had to ask those same hard questions as I have in my own career. With all of the opportunity and all of the things I could do, I have to take my own advice and make sure that people know me for one single thing. I've got to have a way to cut through the noise before I can even attract a deeper conversation.
Yeah, no, it definitely, that was one of the hardest things that we had to do, was just not that I didn't have direction before, but like really sitting down and like figuring, it took me about 6 months, to even kind of figure out like, what do we narrow this down to? Like, what are we so different, and those are the hard questions that you have to ask, but it's so, so important, especially now, because like we talked about, that is a saturated market. And even when I go and I, travel and present, not now, sad, but normally last year and, earlier this year when we were still able to travel, I generally will poll the room just to see who I'm talking to, because, I know how I'm going to say things in my talk, but I would, if the room is full of just people who are, either athletes or, learning for themselves, I'm going to kind of change how I say things, versus if most people say that, oh, I'm a coach, right? So I would say that over the past year plus, 2018, 2019, and starting this year, almost every event that I go to now, when I say, hey, who here, is a coach or a trainer, it's most people. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who's doing this is making this their full-time career. There's plenty of people who do this who just have a few clients, but they're still considering themselves a coach, which is fine. But it's completely changed, like the industry in general. There's so many people who are like, I want to coach people, I want to help people. And, obviously the most enticing market is online coaching, right? So then people are like, oh, well, this is the easiest option. That's what people think. So, what do you think are a few of the most important things as far as like how to actually get that going? Is it, and I know I'm going to know the answer, but I'm just trying to prod, like, is it the degree? Is it the certification? Is it the in-person experience that you had? Is it your own personal things that you've gone through? Like, what would you say are kind of a few of those factors if you are trying to start out as an online coach, whether you want to have 5 clients or 100, doesn't matter. Like, how do you kind of grow that?
I think there are 3 things, and I'm going to list them in no particular order, because I think you need to have all of these 3. I mean, if you leave one out, it's just not going to work as well. It's going to be, first of all, sheer work. You have to go where people are. You have to travel. You have to leave your office. You've got to go across the street and knock on doors. I've helped coaches even do this. Like, even if your studio, your office is right here, I don't care if there's a tire store across the street and a furniture store next door, go meet those people. Go take them to lunch. Make sure they know what you do and that you want to share referrals, like you said. Mm-hmm. It just takes work. You don't make money sitting in your office. You got to go out and meet people. So it's pure work in relationship building. Second is energy level. Like, nobody likes boring people. You got to be excited about what you do. You got to be somebody, whether it's in your social media or something else, you're taking a stand for something. You've got values. You're for something. You gotta have something that attracts people. And that's hard to say as an introvert, because I would much rather just stay behind my computer and type.
I'm like, come on, let's go out. Let's be energetic.
And the third thing is you really do need to differentiate. You need something that sets you apart. And I'll say, like, even in my wife's gift store, you know, we had to think through this. What's going to make your gift store stand out? Everything is all about happiness. It's, you know, give happiness. It's, you know, the tagline is happiness customized. And it's all about, you know, her store is just full of irreverent, funny stuff. Like the F word is on probably 50% of the products out there, from socks and shirts and things. But it's a fun, funny place. And so whenever people come in the store, I swear all you hear is people laughing and saying, oh my gosh, I got to get this for so-and-so. Oh my gosh, I got to get this. And you know, it's not a normal place. It's a very hyper specific place that's all about humor and fun. And so now everybody in the city comes to this one place when they want that one thing. So you got to go out and get the work done. You got to build relationships. You got to have energy and stand for something, before something people can identify you with. And then that's got to be a super unique niche that makes you really stand out from the crowd.
And I think point number one is so valuable for the online group or the online coaching group, because I think a lot of people, now I do think that you can go out too much, right? Like if you are traveling too much and you're spreading yourself too thin, you're not going to be able to deliver to your online clients. But likewise, I think a lot of people who think that they're going to get into online coaching think the best thing they can do is build a social media following. And while that is very, very important for different reasons, it's just as important to balance that out with travel, with meeting people. Even if it's not traveling, like you're leaving the city, like you're just doing things in person in some capacity, like whether it's, like you said, meeting people at, you know, different businesses around the area, or talking to people at your gym or anything like that. Building some kind of just network and just getting out there and doing something is so important. And I know there's plenty of people who have absolutely amazing businesses who kill it, who have no social media following whatsoever. There are certain types of people and businesses that thrive when you have a bigger social media following and bigger engagement. There's no way around that. You know what I mean? Like that is obvious, but that's not what we're talking about. Like that is very typically what I've seen when people have a very high social media following with a high engagement. They do very, very well with selling products, and they're great in the, I don't know, whatever that's called, but like they're great in the product industry, right? Whether they sell programs or they sell other people's products, or they are, you know, we'll use the word influencer, right? Like that kind of a stuff. They do very well with that, and that works for them. And I know people who make stupid money just doing that. They don't have to travel. They don't have to go meet these people, right? And that works for them. But that is not what we're talking about. That is not online coaching whatsoever. So if you want to be able to not only grow your business, but to have a sustainable business, because that's probably another conversation we need to have here, is don't just look at your business for this year. What are you doing to set your business up for the next several years? And that's hard because everybody wants, you know, to make a living right now. Everybody wants to make improvements right now. But sometimes you have to take a step back, or even just kind of say, hey, I'm just even, and I'm not really growing for this next year or two, but because I'm doing all these other things in the back end, in 5 years, we're going to grow. And what would you say kind of about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where having those relationships comes into play. You know, if you are building just an online presence, there's just not a lot of solid benefit to that. The people who come back to me, who I worked with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, these are the people I met at fitness camps. These are the people that I helped them, you know, literally physically at their contests. And those are the relationships that matter. You know, that's why it's so important to you know, not work behind a keyboard, but to get involved in people's lives. And you know, I agree that absolutely there is marketing. You can just throw something out there and just hope it sells and keep selling some stuff. But that is a very short cycle. I've had friends who have made it big with a certain online presence persona or a certain product. And in 2 or 3 years, they're struggling. In 2 or 3 years, that's over, and they're trying to recreate it, and they just don't have a base because they're not known for being somebody, a professional who can help people. And that's where having that person-to-person contact is just imperative.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not, like you said in the beginning, it's not going to like pay off right away. Then you can't just look at every interaction as like, oh, what am I going to get out of this person, right? Like that's like a terrible way of looking at it. But I'll just use kind of like an example that I never thought would have even
anything would have come about this. But I started doing jujitsu last year, and it's a small gym with a, handful of people there. And a lot of them are just kind of like middle-aged guys, and there's some chicks and stuff, and there's a wide variety of age groups, but pretty much it's like middle-aged guys, like that's who's there, right? And most of them aren't like knocking down the door to like, I need a diet coach, right? But they could use some help, right? So I've offer advice, talk to them about stuff. They don't know or care that I have like a YouTube channel or a podcast. Obviously, like we'll talk about that. We'll like joke about it, like, oh, can I go on your podcast? Like stupid stuff. But like nobody's like, oh, what's your online presence look like, right? Like, but as long as I can provide value to them in person and actually show like, oh, I know what I'm talking about in this group, then when something comes up and I'm like, hey, I'm offering in-person consults, like if you have any friends, not even necessarily for those people, but it's like, wow, this is a whole group of people that I would have never interacted with online in social media land. But this is a whole group of people who live in Tampa and know other people who live in Tampa who might need these services down the road. So it's like, it's not like it's, I've been there for a few months. It's not like I have 10 clients from the jiu-jitsu gym. And that's not the point. The point is like you're developing relationships with people. And then when they do need, hey, I've been really like, do you have a protein powder you'd recommend? Or like, hey, like, do you do this coaching thing? Like I have a friend, my wife wants to lose weight or whatever, right? Like then you become that go-to person for them. And I think a lot of people will only look at stuff as like, oh, what can I get out of this right away? Like if I go to this event, am I going to meet this person? Or if I'm going to, no, sometimes it's just, you got to just put in that work and do those things that over time will eventually like, oh yeah, that's that resource. Like that's that person I should be going to because they've actually established credibility. And if you're only doing that online, the rest of the world exists and they don't, know that.
Yeah, every relationship and everything you do socially, you may not see the payoff right there. And as you said, I completely agree. That shouldn't be your goal, is to go get something. But I'm telling you, man, almost every single time I travel somewhere or go somewhere or meet somebody, there is long-term benefit to that just old school networking concept of just, this is now a person I know. And whether it's tomorrow or next week or 5 years from now, there is continued contact. And that's the way everything flows, not just products and services, but even just richness and depth to other relationships. You're going to meet people through that. I mean, had I not come and spoken at Lane's camp years ago, I would have never met you in person. So it just, every single thing you do, there will be some benefit to it.
And look where we are. But yeah, and then would you agree that, and again, right now when we're recording this is kind of a weird time in the world. Clearly that's like a lot of stuff going on. And I have a feeling that the rest of this year is just going to be very different. Even as things open up, I feel like, it's still just going to be kind of a different year. But would you agree? This is kind of what I'm thinking, like over the years, as things have shifted so online, I really do think that the desire for in-person interaction has grown. And I have a feeling, and maybe this is wrong, I could be completely wrong, that people after this whole quarantine shut down, kind of the world has stopped, will be craving more in-person interactions as well. That could just be my extrovert self dying on the inside from this. But I do honestly think that, people are like, wow, even my introvert, like once my introvert clients started struggling, I was like, this is when we've all hit rock bottom. You know what I mean? Like when you guys want to go out, I know that it's time that I'm scaling the walls. But just in general, I think people like realize how much this means to them and how, how much it actually helps their life and enriches their life. So what do you think is going to happen after all this? Like, do you think in-person is going to like boom, or do you think that the world's going to be like, no, Zoom, everything? Like, what do you think?
Well, I do think a lot of people are saying the world's never going to be the same again. And I don't believe that whatsoever. But I think around the periphery, there will be some people who say, yeah, I don't quite have to go into the office every day. I can Zoom meeting and that kind of thing and save some money and blah, blah, blah. But, I think the trend was already so much there just because of social media. It's just unique. I mentioned that when I schedule a Zoom call with a client or a phone call, let's hop on the phone. I've had clients say, really, you talk to your clients, you'll do that. And they get so excited that they're going to actually have a physical point of contact with you, even if it's just a video chat.
Mm-hmm.
Sending a video message to somebody.
Yep.
I know that's kind of a norm now, but a lot of people have not experienced it. So when a client gets their initial programming from me and there's a personal video from me, it's like it's the first thing they'll say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Like, how do you do that? And, it made me feel so special. And you get all of these comments because people really do crave some kind of affirmation that they exist instead of just these lines on a screen.
Yeah, I really do think that, again, maybe this year might be a little bit different, just kind of as things open back up and, the people who are going to be really nervous to travel are going to be, and financially, it's just going to be an interesting year. But I really think that in 2021, like, things are going to pick back up. And, for the rest of this year, I'm going to just kind of go to what I need to go to and what kind of happens. But then really 2021, I'm going to push a lot of the, in-person stuff. And even like, we had to cancel it, but we've already rescheduled it. Like, we had our first team meetup happening, and, not everybody on the team can come, obviously, but it is a handful of people. And like, everyone was so excited, and, just to like hang out for the weekend. Like, there was literally nothing planned besides like, we're going to go to dinner and like the beach. Now we're having a Halloween party because obviously that's the most Team Logo Fit thing to do. But, so we're just going to do that. Right. Or even just like, hey, we're going to have a team Zoom call, and like, people just love to be able to interact, especially because if it is an online business and everybody lives all over the world, literally. So I know this podcast was kind of all over the board, you guys, but there's so many ways to, handle this conversation, and there is no one right way to do it. But kind of to sum it up, Joe, is there anything else you want to kind of add to sum this up? Or
I think just the title of your podcast, the topic, is the most important thing to consider. How do you stand out in a crowded field? How are you going to make it as a coach with all of the noise around you? How do you cut through that noise? And just asking yourself that question every day, every week. Am I doing that? How am I doing that? It's going to come down to the things we talked about, which is meeting people, grinding out the work, really zeroing in on your passions and something that is so incredibly unique to you that nobody else could copy that if they want to. There are so many ways to do that, and I think we overlook them because we're looking for something purely magical. Like I have to be the most educated, or I have to be the best, or I have to have the best physique myself and be Miss Olympia. And forget all that stuff. Find other things that you can do that really connect with people and make them want to work with you. Because if you don't stand out, you're just not going to make it.
Bam, that was mic drop. Felt like you were kind of talking about, I'm just kidding. Like, were you talking about me? No, but that was awesome. And I really, really appreciate you coming on for this one, especially because, like I mentioned before, you have been a great business mentor to me, even before, formally, but all the years beforehand. So I know this would be so valuable for everybody listening. So one more time, where can everybody find you?
thedietdoc.com, or my Instagram and Facebook handles, which are just my name, Joe Klemzeski.
Which we will have in the show notes so you can actually figure out what that is. And if you guys want to check out any other podcasts, read the articles we have on our site, check out the products, or apply for coaching, you go to teamlocofit.com. And if you have not already subscribed, left a review, kind of all that jazz, we would really, really appreciate it, as it does help the podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.